give. So let's start. So our today's topic is about the plant, actually about the plant reproduction. So the plants are the living organisms. They made of many parts, right? They made of the roots, they made of the stems, right? So as you can see in the plant, they made of the roots, they made of the stem, and they made of what? They made of the leaves as well, right? And each part needs water, minerals, and the nutrients to function properly. Okay, it's like a
Yes.
hospital. So the nutrients, they are IV fluids, okay, and the transport system is the veins and the arteries. And without the transportation, the plant cannot grow, they cannot survive, and they cannot photosynthesize. Okay, so in order to happen,
Yes.
in order to all these processes happen, so we need the transportation system. Okay, so two major
Mhm.
things we should know about them. So first of all, how it's getting transported. First, water and the minerals. Okay, so water and the minerals, they're going to be transported through the tissue, through the plant tissue, which is called the xylem. Okay, and other things, for example, the glucose, the sucrose, and other nutrients which were synthesized through the photosynthesis, they will be traveled through the phloem. Okay, this is also the tissue. Those are the tissues, they are transportation tissues inside of the plant cell. Okay, inside of the plant.
Mhm.
So inside of the stem, inside of the roots, inside of the leaves. So they have the special tissue which is called the xylem and which is called the phloem. Okay. What
Yes.
carries these materials? Actually, what carries the water and the minerals? We will answer xylem. What carries the food and sugar from the leaves to all the parts? It will be phloem. Okay, so phloem always
Mhm.
starts with the leaves. So phloem starts with the leaves and goes to other parts. It goes to the stem, it goes to the root. Okay, so regarding the xylem, it's starting from the root. It's starting from the root and always travels in one direction. It always goes up. It makes the water molecules and other substances, minerals. With what kind of the minerals? For example, magnesium, calcium, right? And what else? Potassium. All of them will be traveled through xylem. Okay, water and the minerals will be traveled through the xylem, and the glucose, for example, sucrose molecule, they will be traveled through the phloem. Okay, so phloem is
Mhm.
starting with the F, right? The pronunciation PH is F. So F means food. So food means what? Food is glucose. Okay, it is glucose. It's a mnemonic for the memorization. So phloem carries the food. And as I said, the xylem only works in one direction. It's only transporting substances in one way, but the phloem, it's transporting the substances in two ways, either up and down, okay? And they have
Mhm.
the end walls with the perforations, and those end walls are crucial for balancing what's going up and what's going down, okay? So this is all about the phloem and the xylem. So you have to differentiate between them if the question comes. Okay, xylem carries water and the minerals. Phloem
Mhm.
carries the food, mainly sugars. Okay, direction of the flow. Phloem in both ways. Xylem is in one way. Okay, you should know
Yeah.
about. Okay. So any questions about the xylem and the phloem?
Everything's clear.
Okay, so this is the question. So which substance is the xylem primarily responsible for the transporting? So xylem, so it's not starting with the F. That means it's not transporting the food. It's not transporting the glucose, right? It's not transporting the
Mhm.
sucrose. So those answers are not correct. So about the carbon dioxide and the oxygen, they're not transported through the xylem and the phloem. So those answers are also wrong. Okay, they are gases. And one option is left. The correct answer will be water. Okay.
Water. Yeah.
So xylem only in one direction, phloem goes in both directions. Okay. So you know the roots, right? The roots, they anchor the cell. right? So roots anchor the
Mhm.
plant into the soil like foundation holding a building, okay? And they have the tiny extensions inside of the root. Can you see those tiny extensions? They will be tiny, tiny, small extensions. And those
Yeah.
extensions are called root hairs. They are root hairs, okay? So root hairs, they increase the surface area. The more root hairs you have, the more water you can absorb. That means the more surface area you have, the more you absorb, the more surface area you have, the more you can absorb, okay? So the root hairs, they make the absorption of the water and the minerals from the soil much more efficient, okay? Much more efficient. And think of the root hairs like the villi on your intestines. So we will cover the digestive system as well. And so there is a video regarding the explanation of the digestive system as well in my YouTube channels. So they look like the villi on your small intestines. They both increase the surface area to improve the absorption. And after that, the water and the mineral transport with the xylem, how it's going to happen. So psyllium is made of multiple types of the cells, okay? And so phloem as well. So this is the phloem and this is the psyllium. Psyllium made of several types of the cell. Food from the photosynthesis transported through the phloem. We know about it. So in the xylem, they have a lot of cells, for example, tracheids and the vessel elements. Their job is to carry the water and the minerals up the plant to the
Mhm.
leaves. So xylem flows only upward, you know about it. But the phloem is a little bit different. Phloem carries products of the photosynthesis. Okay, they're going to carry the sucrose, they can carry the amino acids, they can carry the glucose, right? They carry from the leaves. The phloem is going to carry from the leaves to the rest of the plant, for example, to the roots, to the fruits, okay? And it also can be the
Mhm.
flowers, okay? So that's why when you eat the fruit, so this is the fruit, right? This fruit is very sweet. Why? Because the sugar molecule or the sucrose molecule, it came through which tissue until the fruit with phloem. It came through the
Right.
phloem. If phloem doesn't exist, the photosynthesis, for example, leaves do the photosynthesis, and photosynthesis material, which is product, which is glucose, won't come to the fruit if the phloem doesn't exist. Okay, that's why phloem transportation system, phloem tissues, they're really important for transporting the glucose and making the fruit sweet. Okay, they also
Yeah.
transfer all those glucose molecules until the root. Okay, and the phloem
Mhm.
consists of the two special cells. It can appear in the exams as well. That's why I put them. The first is sieve cells. Okay, the first is sieve cells. As you can see, those sieve cells, they make up the transportation system inside. So this is the inner portion of the phloem. They are made of the sieve cells, and those sieve cells, they take part in the transportation, okay? Main transport tubes, they like blood vessels, and they have the companion cells, and those are the companion cells. They support the sieve tubes, okay? So this is the sieve tube. They support the sieve tube, okay, by handling metabolic tasks. For example, it repairs the cell if the sieve cells are damaged, they're going to repair it, okay,
Mhm.
or helping for the loading of the sugars as well. So psyllium and phloem essential for the plant survival at the end. So phloem pH sound is like the F sound. So phloem carries the food. Okay, so F, it's a mnemonic not to forget, and the psyllium then must carry the water. You should know about this.
Okay.
Okay. So the stamen is a male component of the plant. Okay, the stamen is a male component. So in one flower, so this is the flower. In one flower, there is two reproductive system. In one flower, there is two reproductive system, both male and the female in one flower. Okay, the
Mhm.
stamen is the male part of the plant. Okay, it's the male part. The stamen is the male reproductive part of the flower. Okay, it makes and delivers the pollen, which contains male gametes, which are the sperm cells that fertilize the female part of the flower. Okay, in one flower, two reproductive systems. So as you can see, this is the stamen. So this is the stamen, and this is the carpel. You can see carpel as well. So we will now focus on the stamen. Okay, so this is the stamen. It's made of anther and the filament. Okay, so what is anther? So anther is this part. Okay, this part is called the anther, and this anther produces the pollen. You know what's pollen, right? So pollen in the early spring, there is a lot of pollen. Bize Özbek chang deb atamiz, rus tilida pilcha. So this is
Mhm.
it produces the pollen. It produces the male sex cells, and those pollens, they are male sex cells. They like the testes which produce the sperm. This is the analogy to the human body. Okay, so answer makes produces pollen. Okay, which are male sex cells in the flower, and they attach to the filament. So this portion is called filament. It holds up the answer to expose it to the wind or to expose it to the insects. Okay, it's holding the
Mhm.
answer. It's holding the answer in this way. Okay, it's like a spermatic cord offending the support. If you make the analogy, medical analogy. So this is the answer and the filament, and both they are called the stamen, and both all of them is called the stamen. Okay, so pollen is the plant's version of the sperm delivery. Okay, I will repeat. So pollen
Mhm.
this pollen is the plant's version of the sperm delivery. It made from the microspores, like a plant germ cells. Okay, and mature pollen grains, they consist of the one generative cell, one tube cell. You don't have to know about them. So you have to know one pollen there is inside two
Mhm.
sperm cells. Okay, in one pollen there will be two sperm cells. So I will show you in the image. As you can see here, this is the anther, and inside of the anther there are a lot of what pollen molecules. This is the pollen, and in one pollen, okay, in one pollen, so there is two sperm cells. there is there are two sperm cells. Okay,
Mhm.
so actually,
Yeah.
a mature pollen inside, if I show you the mature pollen, imagine this is one big pollen. If I increase in size, okay, a mature pollen grain, it consists one generative cell. Inside there will be one generative cell, and this generative cell divides to form two sperm cells. What this generative cell, it also divides and it forms two sperm cell. This is also sperm cell, and this is also sperm cell, and one is called tube cell. Okay, the second is called tube cell, and tube cell helps grow pollen tube into the ovary. Okay, I will show it to you later. So this is the
Mhm.
pollen tube. So one pollen came here, as you can see, or here. So it's making the pollen tube. You see, it's making the pollen tube. One pollen is making pollen tube from these pollen tube cells. Okay, from them as a result. And when it enters to the reproductive system, female reproductive system, those two sperms, they're going to follow this tube. They're going to go through the tube. Okay, we will talk about it a little bit later. So one fertilizes the egg, and I'm talking about the two sperm cells. Okay, I will come back to it. So one fertilizes the
Mhm.
egg, and other helps to form the endosperm, which is nutrition for the embryo. Okay, so you should know about the stamen. This is the male part of the flower. Okay, it consists of the filament and the anther. Anther makes the pollen. Filament carries two sperm cells. Okay, so
Mhm.
those simple
Yeah.
terminologies you have to know here. Okay, Why it
Yes.
matters, why we have to learn about it, why it matters. That means if you don't have the pollen, if the plant doesn't have the pollen, that means there is no fertilization. If there is no fertilization, means there is no seed. You know what seed, right?
No.
Simina, simina,
Ah,
urula,
yeah, yeah.
meyveler işte. So if there is
Mm-hmm.
no seed, means no new plants. If no seed,
Mm,
no new plant. And each of us want to deliver our DNA to other generations. Like, for example, I want to deliver my DNA to my children. So the trees as well. The babies of the trees are their fruits. Okay, the fruit actually the baby of the trees. Okay, actually I
mm-hmm.
can
Yeah.
say more clearly. Huh? What was the question?
No question.
Okay, so specifically, I can say the seeds, semina, okay, urular. So the
Mm-hmm.
seeds, they are the babies of the plant,
Trees.
any plant, okay,
Ah.
or trees or any plant, okay, any
Mm-hmm.
plant. So when you put it to the soil, when you put the seed to the soil, the new organism is going to grow or new plant is going to grow. That's why this is called what? That's why it is the baby of the plant. Okay, so no pollen means no fertilization. No fertilization means no seed. So that means no new plant is formed. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so any questions so far?
No, everything's clear.
Okay, let's learn the pistil. Pistil, it is the female reproductive organ of the flower. Okay, it is female reproductive organ of the flower. So this is the pistil. As you can see, this portion is called the pistil. Okay, and this portion is called what? Stigma. Okay, stigma is made of anther and the filament. We already talked about it. And this portion is called pistil. So pistil made of the stigma. Okay, this portion is called the stigma. This is sticky tip where the pollen lands. Those pollen, they're going to come and stick here. This is the sticky area. We call it stigma. Okay, this is the most tip, it's the most outer surface. It's like the external genitalia receiving this sperm. This is the analogy for the human body. Okay. Or and the second is style. This style, you can see this style. This is the tube connecting the stigma to the ovary. Okay. This style is the
Mm-hmm.
tube connecting the stigma to the ovary. Okay, it's like a fallopian tube guiding the sperm to the egg. Okay, so ovaries, they contains the ovules. So those are the ovaries, and inside of the ovary there are a layer, as you can see here, six ovules. Those are called ovules. Okay, they contain the ovules. They are like human ovary holding the egg cells inside. So ovule itself, so this is one ovule itself structure that develops into the seeds after the fertilization. Ovule develops into the seed, okay? These ovules
Mm-hmm.
will become the seeds after the fertilization, and that actually this ovary becomes the fruit after the fertilization. Okay, so I will repeat, after the fertilization, the ovary becomes the fruit, and those ovules, they become the seed. They
Mm-hmm.
become seed, and this ovary become fruits, becomes fruit. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so this is essential. So what happens? The journey inside. What's happening? So you see the pollen, right? This is the pollen. You can see a lot of pollen molecules. So this is the pollen. So what's happening? This pollen molecule will go to the pistil. So this portion is called the what? This portion is called,
Pistil.
sorry, stigma. The stigma, which
Mm-hmm.
is, yes, it's pistil actually, specifically the stigma. It comes to the stigma, okay? Pollen lands on the stigma. it grows a pollen tube. Okay, as I said, it forms a bee, a long pollen tube. So I'm going to draw it. It forms a pollen tube. It reaches to the until the ovule. Okay, it reaches to the first ovary. Actually, specifically to the ovule, and if the fertilization happens, the seeds, the seeds will be formed, and from that ovary we will form the fruit. Okay, from ovary
Yeah.
itself we form the fruit, and the seeds are formed from the ovules. Okay, you don't have to know about the other parts uh, of this slide actually. Okay, so each ovule forms megaspores. Then megaspores undergo divisions to form the egg cells and the polar bodies. Okay, we will talk about it soon. And just like in humans, where the meiosis in the ovaries gives one cell in the three polar bodies, the plants also produce the polar bodies. Okay, so you can watch my reproductive system video, female reproductive system video as well, in order to understand the oogenesis. But for the plants, let's closely look to the oogenesis, how it's happening. Okay, we will talk about it after some time. So for now, you should know that each ovule, the inside, they form the egg cells and the polar bodies. Each sperm cell, okay, and in each pollen, there is inside one, what? One,
Where? Inside what?
one. In in one pollen, there is
Inside two
two sperm
spermels
and one growing
cells.
tube. In one
Tube.
growing tube,
Yeah.
and this growing tube is going to grow, and two sperm cells, they're going to enter, right? But in the ovule, inside of the ovule, if I draw this ovule, imagine this is one ovule. Ovule, they form the megaspores actually, and these megaspores, they undergo division to form the egg cell. Okay, the one that will be fertilized. Inside they will have the egg cell, and they will have the polar bodies supporting structures. Okay, so there will be a lot of polar bodies. So if the sperm comes and fertilizes the egg cells, one sperm comes and fertilizes the egg cell. If it fertilizes the egg cell, it becomes the zygote. Actually, it becomes the baby plant, embryo plant. Okay, if they fertilize the polar bodies, they become the endosperm, and this endosperm will be nutrition for the growing plant. Okay, I'm talking about the seed
Yeah.
now. So eggs and the polar bodies. So, any questions
No question.
so far? Okay, let's talk about steps of the pollination. The first step, so reproduction of the flowering plant. In every reproducing flowering plant, they do first pollination. So pollination, this is a process of the moving pollen, which is male, to the stigma, to the female of the flower. So as you can see, this is actually the pollen grains. You see, those are the pollen one. They are pollen. So this pollen is going to come and attach to the stigma. Okay, female part of the flower. They're going to. This portion is called what? This portion is stigma. This is what? This is pollen, and
Polar.
this portion is called anther. Okay, this portion is called filament. Anther and filament together, they're called what? Anther and the filament together, they're called
Stamen.
stamen. Yes, they're called stamen. Good. So the pollen, they're going to come to the stigma. How they're going to come? How they're going to come? They can come through the air, through the wind. Okay, through the wind, the pollen can come and stick to the stigma, or they can be carried by the bees. They can be carried by those bees. Okay, how the bee is going to carry it? With their abdomen or with their leg? They're going to bring with themselves the pollen from another flower. Okay, the stigma, the tip of the female pistil is sticky. It catches that pollen. Okay, the nectary at the flower base. In the flower base, there is a nectary. Okay, we call it nectar. The nectary actually at the base of the flower. This is the nectaries, as you can see, general location of the nectary. This is also nectary. Those nectaries at the base, at the flower base, they make the nectar. Okay, why the nectar is made? Nectar is made to attract the insects. For example, the bees. Bees come and they are attracted by the nectars. This is the food for them. They catch up the nectar, but while catching up them, they don't know that they are fertilizing the flower. Okay, they are bringing the pollen. They
Mm.
don't know themselves. They're
Yeah.
just coming for the nectar and they are bringing the pollen with themselves, and those pollen molecules they're going to attach to the stigma. So when they are attached to the stigma, then the pollen grains form. So the pollen tubes they are formed, and two sperm cells they're going to enter inside. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so bee is like a delivery man, picking up the pollen packages from one flower and dropping them on another. Once pollen lands on the stigma, the germination is going to start. Okay, so what's germination in plants? What is germination? So germination, this is the pollen grains forms the pollen tube that grows down throughout the style, and this tube delivers the sperm cell to the ovule inside the ovary. Okay, this leads to the fertilization. Okay, this is called the germination process. So germination, imagine the pollen grains. Now the pollen is in the stigma. Okay, it's attached to the
Mhm.
stigma now. Now they're going to form what? They're going to form the what?
Inside.
Inside
Inside.
they're going to form, yes, growing tube, right? They're going to form the
Uh-huh.
growing tube. So this portion is called style. This portion is called stigma, right? And this portion is
Yeah.
called, this is also style. This portion is called ovary, right? This portion is called ovary. So style ovary. So in the stigma, the pollen is attached and it's growing. This is called growing tube, right? Where the growing tube is happening in the, so it's starting in the, what is this structure is called? Pollen. Okay, inside of the pollen there is
Yeah, yeah.
grows tube
Two
cells, and there are two sperm cells, growing tube cells. They're
cells
going to
and
grow
one tube.
inside,
Yeah.
and they will reach to the ovary, specifically to the
Over.
ovule, okay, specifically to the ovule. This is the big structure. This big structure is called the ovary, but inside smaller structures they're called the ovules. They will reach to the ovules, okay, one of the ovules. They will reach to one of the
Mhm.
ovules, and two sperm cells they're going to come there. Okay, two sperm cells they're going to come here in order to fertilize this ovule. Okay, this is called the germination process. So you should know about the answer. Answer makes the pollen. Pollen grains they contain the sperm cells, and the stigma, this is the sticky surface on the surface of the plant. Okay, surface of the pollen,
Mhm.
it is where the pollen lands actually. Bee or the wind they transfer the pollen from the flower to flower, and nectaries they attract the insects with nectar. So well, we summarized everything. Okay. Any question so far?
No questions.
Okay, so germination after pollen lands the stigma, it gets activated. So it's germinated, right? And it grows pollen tubes through the style. Think of it like guided tunnel. Okay, it likes a tunnel. Okay, towards the ovary. The
Mhm.
goal is to get the sperm cells inside the pollen all the way to
Ovals.
the ovule. Okay, inside to the ovules, we should transfer the sperm cells. Okay,
Mhm.
then they have the double fertilization. What's the meaning of the double fertilization? It's the most important step in flowering plant reproduction. So double fertilization means First sperm is going to fertilize the egg cell. The second sperm is going to fertilize or fuse with two polar nuclei. Okay, let me explain you. So what does it mean? So imagine these are the pollen tubes and the two sperm cells are coming to the ovule. Inside of the ovule, there is egg nuclei, there is an egg nucleus, and they have what? Also, they have the polar nuclei. Okay, one sperm is going to mix with polar nuclei, another sperm is going to fertilize the egg nuclei. Okay, we have two sperms coming, this one and one. This will fertilize the egg nuclei, this will fuse with polar nuclei. These polar nuclei, when they are fused with the sperm cell, they form the endosperm nucleus, and when the sperm fertilizes the egg nucleus, they will form the zygote. Okay, from the zygote the embryo will develop. This is the plant embryo. Okay, and from the endosperm nucleus the endosperm will be formed. So what's endosperm? This is the nutrient for growing plant. Okay, imagine this is the seed, this is one seed, you're putting it to the soil, right? You're flowering it, you're giving water to it, right? So you're giving the water to it, so it should grow up. In order to grow up, they need what? They need the food for the growth. So where the food is, it's in the endosperm. They're using the endosperm food for a while, okay, until they photosynthesize. They're going to use the endosperm as a food, okay, and they have the seed coat as well. This is the seed coat, this is the hard tissue. So as you can see, this is the seed, this is the grown plant from the embryo, okay? And they use it their endosperm already. Okay, this is the seeding process. Any questions so far regarding the double fertilization? Any questions?
How they can like find endosperm? Like there is one egg nucleus and polar nucleus, yeah? And how
Yes.
they go to endosperm?
They just fuse the sperm cells, they are going to fuse, okay, with them. They're going to fuse with them, and they will have three n number, if I'm not mistaken. This is n, this is n, and one sperm comes, they will form three n. Out of this three n, they will form the endosperm. Okay, this is triploid number. And in the egg nucleus, this is n, this is also n. They will form, and they will form two n. From this, they will form the embryo.
Yeah.
Okay,
Clear. Yeah.
this is the endosperm, this is the embryo. I don't know clearly everything, but when I studied that, this was the case, this was the answer. So this is called the double fertilization. One sperm fertilizes the polar nuclei, joins with polar nuclei, they form the endosperm, which is nutrient for the growing embryo. But where the embryo is coming from, second embryo is coming from the second sperm. When it fertilizes the egg nuclei, it forms the zygote and forming the embryo. I hope it is understandable. Any
Yeah.
questions?
No
So,
questions.
and the sperm is very important. It is the energy, okay? So without it, there won't be energy and there won't be any plant growth. Okay, that's why it's important. To summarize, pollen lands on sticky stigma, pollen tube grows down the style, two sperm cells move down through the tube, one sperm fertilizes the egg, one sperm fertilizes the polar nuclei, which form the endosperm. Okay, this is important. As you can see here as well. So formed embryo and formed endosperm, right? This is the formed embryo and formed endosperm. The fertilized egg becomes plant embryo, will grow into the new plant, and the other sperm fertilizing the endosperm. This is the nutritive tissue, and it feeds the embryo. Okay, it's like
Mhm.
placenta and yolk sac in the human body. Aleurone layer. What is it? Aleurone layer. This layer is nutrient processing outer layer of the endosperm. Okay, this is the outer layer of the endosperm, and this is the
Mhm.
seed coat. Seed coat. This is the protective outer layer. Okay, it keeps the embryo and endosperm safe. Okay, so what's embryo? Embryo, it is the baby. This is baby plant. Okay, will grow into the new plant. What is endosperm? This is the food-rich tissue from the polar nuclei plus sperm. It feeds the embryo inside the seed. Okay, it feeds the embryo which is inside the seed. This is actually the big seed, like big seed. Any questions?
No question.
So the seed then matures, it's going to mature, it falls into the soil, or it's spreaded by the animals. It can be spread by the animals, it can be spread by us. For example, the apple in Uzbekistan can be traveled to the USA, right? And if the
Mhm.
seed falls to the soil in the United States, the plant, which is apple plant, is going to grow in the US, right? So that's why the plants can also travel. It can travel through the wind as well. The wind, for the winds bring a lot of seeds to other countries as well. It can travel through the water itself. Okay, it can travel through the water itself. With water, then it's going to you give the water, you give the worms, you give the soil to the seed, and the embryo will grow. Okay, it forms the new plant. Okay. Any questions?
No questions. Clear.
This is about how the seed and the fruit is going to form. So you know about it from the ovule, they form the seed, and from the ovary they develop the fruit. Okay, you can
Mhm.
differentiate the ovule from the ovary, right? The seed is
Yeah.
released, and when it finds a suitable environment, develops into the new plant. So as you can see, this is adult plant, this is the pollination, this is the fruit with the seeds, and this seed will go and germinate in the soil, and they will seedling process will also happen here. So
Mhm.
this is actually all about the plants. We will only focus on those parts of the plant, and this is also the explanation part. So
Yeah.
we covered everything here, I guess. Everything is covered here, and this is the actually for the assessment purposes. I made the questions. You can solve them as well. So let's